Hey there, and welcome to Boys Love Story, where we bring you touching BL school romances that will warm your heart and stir your emotions. Each episode on this channel is a unique journey of love. Whether it's sweet, slow burn, dramatic, or healing, our stories are crafted to make you feel seen and comforted. Today's story falls into the school BL genre and is all about young love, emotional growth, and moments that make your heart flutter. Title: I'm the class president, he's the delinquent. Genre: BL, school life, sweet romance, drama, enemies to lovers, slice of life. So grab your headphones, get cozy, and let your imagination drift into a world where boys fall in love, quietly, boldly, and beautifully. Another fight. That was the third this month. Minoru Akiyama sat in the front row of the staff office, arms crossed, trying not to grind his teeth as the vice principal repeated the same tired speech. "We believe this could be a chance for mutual growth," the man said, adjusting his glasses. "Kenzaki-kun is lacking structure. You, Akiyama-kun, are capable of providing that." Minoru's jaw tightened. "With all due respect, sir, I'm the class president, not a babysitter." From the far corner, Ryo Kanzaki slouched in his seat with his usual bored expression. One leg lazily crossed over the other, a faint bruise darkening his cheek. "TCH, babysitter? That's rich," Ryo said with a smirk. "Didn't know class pres had claws." Minoru shot him a glare. "Maybe if you acted like a student instead of a wild animal, we wouldn't be here." "Oh, am I scaring you?" Ryo taunted, leaning forward slightly, the piercings on his ear glinting in the light. The vice principal cleared his throat loudly. "Enough. Here's the arrangement. Kanzaki will attend daily after-class sessions with Akiyama for tutoring and behavior reports. This is your final chance, Kanzaki-kun. Don't waste it." Ryo rolled his eyes. Yeah. Whatever." Minoru stood up stiffly. "Understood." Then muttered under his breath, "This is going to be hell." That afternoon, Room 2 as study hall felt like a battlefield. Minoru had arranged his notes neatly, books stacked with precision. In contrast, Ryo dropped into the seat across from him, like he had just fallen from the sky. "So," Ryo said, propping his chin on his hand, "are you going to bore me with math or start lecturing me about life?" Minoru didn't look up. "I don't care what you do. But if you're here, you're studying." Ryo leaned forward, a mocking grin tugging at his lips. "You know, you'd be a lot cuter if you weren't so uptight." Minoru nearly dropped his pen. What? "I'm joking," Ryo said casually, smirking. "Relax, class president." Minoru tried to refocus on the worksheet in front of him. Deep breaths. Don't let him get under your skin. It's only for 2 weeks. But Ryo didn't make it easy. He spent the first 20 minutes doodling in the margins of the practice sheet, then asked deliberately stupid questions like, "Is he a number?" and "Can I pay someone to take the test for me?" Minoru clenched his teeth so hard he thought his molars might crack. Still he endured. Because he had to. Because someone like Ryo Kanzaki wasn't going to ruin his perfect academic record. Or his temper. The following day, things weren't much better. Ryo showed up late, flopped into the seat and said, "Don't worry, I'm here to be inspired by your righteousness." Minoru ignored him. But as the days went on, something odd began to happen. Minoru noticed that despite the sarcasm and eye rolls, Ryo was actually doing the work. He filled in the answers. He asked fewer dumb questions. He even stopped throwing paper airplanes at the ceiling. Not that he was trying. Ryo never tried. He just existed with chaotic energy and a careless smirk. And yet, one rainy afternoon, Minoru stayed late to return library books. As he walked down the quiet hallway past the first-year wing, he heard sniffles. Turning the corner, he saw a small boy in a damp uniform, wiping his nose and blinking through tears. "I can't find my classroom," the boy said. Before Minoru could speak, another voice cut in. "Hey, Rio." He approached casually, hands in his pockets, hair damp from the drizzle outside. "You lost, kid?" he asked, crouching down to the boy's eye level. His tone was surprisingly soft. "What's your class?" The boy hiccuped. 1B. Rio stood up, glanced around, then offered his hand. "Come on. I'll walk you there." Minoru stood frozen in place, watching from the corner. The scene didn't match anything he thought he knew about Rio Kanzaki. No sarcasm, no sneer. Just quiet kindness. After they disappeared around the corner, Minoru stepped back and leaned against the wall, heart beating strangely. The next day during their tutoring session, Rio dropped into the seat like always, but Minoru kept glancing at him. "What?" Rio asked, raising an eyebrow. Minoru hesitated, then finally said, "Yesterday, with the first-year boy." Rio blinked, surprised. "You saw that?" Minoru nodded. "You helped him." Rio leaned back, lips quirking. "Don't tell anyone. I've got a bad rep to protect." Minoru studied him, confused. "Why do you act like you don't care about anything, when you clearly do?" Rio's smile faded just slightly. He looked away. "Because caring gets you in trouble." Minoru didn't know what to say to that, so he just returned to his notes. But somehow, the silence between them felt less hostile now. Maybe even calm. As the week ended, Minoru sat at his desk late into the night, thinking back on everything. Rio's annoying smirks, his sharp words, his careless attitude, but also the way he helped a scared boy without hesitation. The way he asked real questions when he thought no one was watching. Minoru had believed Rio was nothing but a delinquent, a hopeless case. But maybe there was more to him. It started with a pencil. A single, ordinary pencil that rolled off Rio's desk and landed under Minoru's chair. Not a big deal until Rio asked, "Hey, class president, can you grab that for me?" Minoru, already tired from a long morning of announcements and student council duties, replied curtly, "Pick it up yourself." Rio raised an eyebrow. "Wow, all that politeness and not a shred of manners?" The words were quiet, but sharp enough to cut. Minoru turned around, face flushed. "Maybe I'm tired of catering to someone who doesn't even try." And that was all it took. Voices escalated. Rio stood up. Chairs scraped. The entire class froze, unsure whether they should break it up or let it burn. And then, slam. "Enough!" barked Ms. Kuroda from the doorway. By lunch, the punishment had already been decided. After-school detention. Both of them. Minoru had never gotten detention in his life. Rio, on the other hand, looked completely unfazed. "Guess I'm a bad influence," he muttered as they walked toward the empty classroom assigned for their detention. Minoru shot him a glare. "You're proud of this, aren't you?" Rio shrugged. "Not proud. Just used to it." They entered the room. The ticking of the wall clock echoed in the silence. No teacher supervision, just a stack of old textbooks and a fan that whirred too loudly. Minoru sat by the window. Rio chose the seat farthest from him. For 10 whole minutes, neither spoke. Then, out of nowhere, Rio muttered, "You really don't like me, huh?" Minoru glanced at him. "You make it hard." Rio chuckled, but there was no amusement in it. "I don't try to make it easy." Minoru set his pencil down. "Why? What's the point in pushing everyone away?" Rio's smirk twitched. Faltered. He looked at the chalkboard, eyes distant. Because people don't stay. Minoru blinked. What? Rio slouched lower in his chair. They pretend to care. For a while. But once things get messy, they leave. So what's the point? For the first time, Minoru noticed the tired slump in Rio's shoulders. The bruises from fights. The defensive sarcasm that felt more like a wall than a weapon. Minoru swallowed. Not everyone leaves. Rio looked at him, slowly. Aren't you planning to? As soon as this rehabilitation project ends? Minoru hesitated. I didn't say that. But you're thinking it. Silence. It felt too heavy for just one room. The next day, the whispers started. Minoru heard them first in the hallway. Did you hear? Kanzaki threatened the class president during detention. I bet he made him stay quiet. That guy is dangerous. He stopped short outside the faculty office and turned, catching a glimpse of Tsurayame, leaning against the wall with a smug look, whispering to a group of first-years. Minoru's fists clenched. He marched up to Suda. What are you doing? Suda smiled, all fake innocence. Oh, just sharing some facts. You should be careful, Akiyama-kun. That guy has a temper. Rio didn't threaten me. Really? Suda tilted his head. Because people are saying you looked scared when you left detention. Minoru opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. Because technically, he had looked upset. Confused. Off balance? But not because of fear. Because of what Rio had said. By lunch, the rumor had spread across 2 classrooms. Rio walked into study hall to find students moving away from him. Giving him wary glances. Whispering. He didn't say a word. Just looked toward Minoru, who avoided his gaze. That hurt more than the rumors. After school, Minoru finally caught up to him behind the gym building. Rio, don't. Rio didn't even look at him. You don't have to defend me. Just let them believe whatever they want. It's easier that way. But it's not true. Rio finally turned to him, eyes hard. Does it matter? They've already made up their minds. Minoru stepped closer. It matters to me. That gave Rio pause. Why? Because I don't think you're the monster they say you are. Rio's jaw clenched. Then you're dumber than I thought. But his voice cracked just a little. Minoru stared at him, really stared. He didn't see a delinquent anymore. He saw a boy who had been hurt one too many times. A boy who had learned that pushing people away was safer than being abandoned. That night, Minoru couldn't sleep. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Rio, don't worry about the rumors. I've been through worse. You don't have to waste your energy on me. Sleep well. Class Prez. Minoru stared at the screen for a long time. Then replied, Minoru, I'm not wasting anything. And I'll prove it to you. The day started too quiet. Minoru noticed it first when he walked into homeroom. Usually, Rio would be leaning against the window, headphones in, pretending not to care. But today, his seat was empty. No slouching. No smirking. No sarcastic. Morning, Class Prez. Minoru sat down slowly, feeling an ache in his chest that surprised even him. Had the rumors finally gotten to Rio? During lunch, Minoru found Rio on the rooftop, legs dangling over the railing, his back to the door. Hey, Minoru said carefully, stepping closer. You skipped first period again. Rio didn't turn around. So what? Minoru paused, unsure how to start, then finally blurted out. Why do you keep pushing people away? Silence. The wind tugged at Rio's uniform. Then, softly, Rio said, Because I'm used to people leaving. Minoru sat beside him, far enough to give space, close enough to be heard. You think if you hurt them first, they won't get the chance? Rio let out a bitter laugh. You sound like a counselor. I'm not. I'm just trying to understand. Rio didn't answer. Not until several long moments passed. Then he spoke, voice low. Almost ashamed. I used to be like you, you know. Minoru looked at him, surprised. I was top of my class in middle school, Rio said, gaze distant. Math competitions. Science fairs. I had friends. A plan. What happened? Rio's hands clenched into fists. My mom got sick. Real bad. And I missed too much school taking care of her. My grades slipped. People stopped calling. Teachers gave up on me. Minoru felt his heart tighten. I snapped. Got into fights. Said I didn't care. And the scary part? Rio looked at him then, eyes raw. Eventually, I didn't. Minoru didn't speak right away. He just nodded slowly, letting the story settle. You're not that person now, he said finally. Rio gave a half smile. You sure? Most people seem to think I'm worse. I don't, Minoru said, voice firm. And I'm done pretending I do. From that day forward, things changed. Minoru didn't just tolerate Rio anymore, he defended him. When students whispered in the halls, he shut them down with a glare. When Ms. Kuroda made a snide remark about certain students, Minoru called her out, respectfully but clearly. At first, people were shocked, then curious. Some even began giving Rio a second chance. But not everyone. Yui Nishino had always been quiet, but not harmless. She had once had a crush on Rio. Publicly confessed during their first year. He turned her down gently, but clearly. She never forgot the humiliation. And now, watching Minoru spend more and more time with him, her resentment bubbled up like poison. One afternoon, during cleaning duty, Yui spotted Minoru's school bag left unattended. She moved like a shadow. Unzipped, slipped out his notebook, the one he used for exam prep. Inside, she scribbled something. Tucked in a folded paper with what looked like Rio's handwriting. Then zipped it closed. 2 days later, during homeroom, Minoru was summoned to the teacher's office. Inside sat Ms. Kuroda, holding his notebook like it was toxic. Care to explain this? She said coldly. Minoru frowned. Explain what? She opened the notebook to a page with a small cheat formula scrawled in the margin, one not in his handwriting. And tucked beside it, a note, supposedly from Rio. Here's what you asked for. Don't get caught, Prez. Minoru's eyes widened. This isn't. We're reviewing your exam results. If you cheated with Kanzaki's help, both of you will face disciplinary action. Minoru stood frozen. I didn't cheat, he said quietly. And Rio didn't help me. But Ms. Kuroda wasn't listening. She already had her verdict. When Minoru left the office, Rio was waiting outside. He knew something was wrong the moment he saw Minoru's face. What happened? They think I cheated, Minoru said, voice flat. And that you helped me. Rio blinked, stunned. What? That's insane. I know. Rio clenched his fists. Who would even? Then his eyes narrowed. Yui. Minoru looked up. You think she did it? She's the only one petty enough. She still hates me for rejecting her. Minoru exhaled. We need to prove it. Rio stepped forward, placing a hand on Minoru's shoulder. We will. Minoru looked at him, startled. The warmth of that simple touch grounded him. You believe me? He asked. Rio gave him a half smile. Of course I do, class prez. You're the only person who's ever believed in me. That night, Rio snuck into the classroom to check the hallway camera footage. He borrowed a teacher's key, Don't ask how. And watched the recording of cleaning duty 2 days ago. And there it was. Yui. Slipping the notebook from Minoru's bag. Gotcha. The next morning, Ryo and Minoru burst into the office. Video proof in hand. Ms. Kuroda reviewed it in silence. Then, reluctantly, dismissed the charges. Minoru was cleared. Ryo too. But the damage had left a mark. Later, as they stood outside the school gate, Ryo looked at Minoru. You okay? Minoru nodded. You? Ryo chuckled. Didn't think I'd be breaking into classrooms for someone. Guess you're rubbing off on me. Minoru smiled softly. You're not as heartless as you pretend. Ryo raised an eyebrow. Careful. You'll ruin my image. A pause. Then Ryo added, voice lower. Thanks for not giving up on me. Minoru looked at him, eyes warm. I couldn't. You're not someone to give up on. The air felt heavier than usual. Minoru sat outside the principal's office, fingers trembling slightly as he gripped the edge of his uniform. Ms. Kuroda's earlier words still echoed in his ears. The administration is reviewing your status. Cheating, even with tampered evidence, reflects poorly on your position as class president. He had been cleared, informally, by the teachers after Ryo submitted the video evidence. But there was no formal apology. No retraction. Just suspicion hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. When the principal finally called him in, Minoru stood up straight, chin high, but inside. His confidence was cracking. Meanwhile, Ryo wasn't sitting around. He stormed down the hallway like a bullet, jaw tight, eyes sharp. The lies, the rumors, the silence, it had gone too far. He knew exactly where to go. Suda Yamabe was lounging by the vending machines, acting like the world didn't just almost implode because of his little lies. You? Ryo growled. Suda flinched. What? Ryo shoved him against the wall, not hard enough to hurt, but enough to scare. You started that rumor. The one that made the teachers target Minoru. I didn't. Ryo's voice was ice. Don't lie to me. You wanted him humiliated because he wouldn't listen to you. Because he chose to believe in me. Suda glanced around, realizing eyes were watching. Students gathered, murmuring. He's not the only one who saw what Yui did, Ryo said, louder now, daring anyone to challenge him. She stole that notebook. Suda helped her cover it up. And you all let it happen. Murmurs turned into whispers. Whispers into words. He's right. A voice said. It was Hana from 2A, eyes wide but determined. I saw Yui by his desk during cleaning duty. I didn't think much of it at the time. Another chimed in. Me too. She looked guilty. The tide was turning. Back in the principal's office, Minoru stood straight as the principal reviewed a report handed to him by Ms. Fuji, their literature teacher. Based on this new evidence, the principal said slowly, you're cleared of any wrongdoing. Minoru didn't smile. He just bowed. Thank you. But as he turned to leave, Ms. Kuroda muttered, your choice of friends reflects your judgment, Akiyama. Remember that? Minoru looked her straight in the eyes. My judgment told me he was worth believing in. And I was right. The school day ended, but Minoru didn't go home. Instead, he climbed the stairs to the rooftop, heart beating unevenly. He didn't know why he came here, until he opened the door. Ryo was already there, leaning on the fence, arms crossed, pretending he wasn't waiting. You didn't go home? Minoru asked softly. Ryo shrugged without turning around. Didn't feel like it. Minoru stepped beside him, the breeze ruffling both their uniforms. I'm cleared, he said. I know. You did all that for me? Ryo finally looked at him. There was something vulnerable in his expression. Something raw. "You were the only one who saw me as more than a lost cause," he said quietly. Minoru swallowed. "You were never a lost cause, Ryo." A pause. Ryo looked away. "You don't get it, do you?" "I was ready to walk away from this school. From everything. Then you showed up. With your perfect grades, and your stupid sense of justice." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "And instead of judging me, you stayed." Minoru's voice was barely a whisper. "Because I saw you." Ryo turned toward him fully now. "Yeah. And you made me want to be seen. That's messed up, you know?" Minoru smiled, eyes soft. Ryo reached out, hesitating only for a second, and gently took Minoru's hand. "I like you," he admitted. "Even when you're annoyingly perfect. Maybe especially then." Minoru's eyes welled up, but he smiled through it. "You've always been more, Ryo. You just didn't believe it yet." Ryo looked down at their hands. "But you did. Even when I didn't deserve it." Minoru squeezed his hand gently. "That's what love feels like." They stood there, hand in hand, as the sun began to sink below the horizon. The golden light painted them in quiet warmth. For once, there were no rumors, no teachers, no expectations. Just the delinquent and the class president, and something real between them. The classroom was quieter than usual. The late spring sun filtered in through the tall windows, casting a golden glow over the neatly lined desks. The board had been cleaned for the last time. The chairs had been stacked by eager hands preparing for the next chapter of their lives. And Ryo Kanzaki was sitting in his usual spot. In the very back. Not sleeping. Not glaring. Taking notes. Not that there was much left to note on the last day, but still he sat there, pen in hand, brows furrowed slightly in focus. He didn't even look up when Minoru passed by to check if anyone needed help. He didn't need to. Because when their eyes met, even across the room, there was a quiet understanding. No teasing smirk. No defensive glare. Just peace. The graduation ceremony came quickly. Minoru stood on stage, heart racing under his pristine uniform, the school's emblem glinting on his chest. The hall was full. Students, parents, teachers. And right in the back corner of the crowd, leaning casually against a pillar in the shadow of a beam, was Ryo. Not in uniform. Just a button-up and loose tie. Slightly crooked, but the look somehow made him more grounded. More himself. Minoru took a breath and began his speech. "We've learned a lot in our time here, about discipline, about excellence, about doing things the right way." Eyes politely focused on him. Some even nodded. "But what I learned the most wasn't in textbooks or rules." People murmured. "I learned that order means nothing without heart. And sometimes, the people we judge the most are the ones who teach us what it truly means to be human." Silence. "To the person who reminded me of that, thank you. You changed everything." From the back, Ryo looked down. Then back up. And this time he smiled, just barely. After the ceremony, the courtyard filled with flashes of cameras, students shouting goodbyes, families hugging. Flowers were handed out, ties loosened, promises made that everyone knew they probably wouldn't keep. Minoru politely accepted well wishes from teachers, took photos with his classmates, and returned every compliment with that calm, composed demeanor he'd mastered. But the moment he slipped away from the crowd, he made his way behind the school, behind the gym building where it was quiet, where it all began, and somehow, where it was always meant to end. And Ryo was already there, leaning against the wall, head down, waiting. When Minoru stopped in front of him, neither of them spoke for a long moment. Then Ryo reached out. He didn't say anything. Just took Minoru's hand. Firmly. like he wasn't ever letting go. Minoru looked down at their hands, then up at Rio. Rio's voice was soft. Still think I'm a delinquent? Minoru smiled. Maybe. But you're my delinquent now. Rio laughed under his breath, shaking his head. You're such a sap, he murmured. I learned from the best. They stood like that, the wind brushing past them. The last sounds of graduation fading into the background. Rio squeezed Minoru's hand. So what now? Minoru looked at him. Really looked. Now, he said, taking a breath. Now we start for real. Thank you so much for spending time with Boys Love Story today. We hope this episode touched your heart, made you smile, or even gave you a moment to escape into something beautiful. If you enjoyed the story, we'd love for you to support us by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with other BL lovers out there. Your support means the world and helps us create more stories filled with love, hope, and healing. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Until next time, stay safe, stay kind, and stay in love.